So hello guys, and welcome to another episode of Paper Chat, and today I will be discussing something very intriguing about the Mario RPGs. I know this series is called Paper Chat, but you know what? I think it's fair to consider the Mario RPGs as a whole as a part of this kind of discussion series that I'm doing. But yeah, so there was a survey that Nintendo sent out to a bunch of people. I believe it's in the UK from what I'm seeing, like based on the box arts and different things. But someone got this survey and posted it to r/Mario. Unfortunately, there isn't a link because I would love to fill out this survey. This is like right up my alley, considering how big of a Mario RPG fan I am. But basically, this survey deals with the Mario RPGs as a whole. And I mean, on the surface, I mean, that's already like super intriguing and super interesting that Nintendo would actually make a poll or like a survey about that. But on top of that, it kind of goes to show that Nintendo kind of values the Mario RPGs as like kind of being under the same umbrella. I mean, sure, it doesn't include Mario plus Rabbids, but I think that's kind of obvious, even though most fans consider it Mario RPGs, and I think that's absolutely fair to consider the Mario plus Rabbids games as a part of the Mario RPGs, but it's understandable that Nintendo would exclude it as a part of their official designation of the Mario RPGs because they aren't Nintendo published games. But this does include Super Mario RPG, like with the remake and the original game and everything. And that definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm glad they didn't like consider it its weird own thing, because Super Mario RPG directly contributed to the creation of Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. So it's great to see that Nintendo is kind of considering Paper Mario, Mario and Luigi, and Mario RPG like all in kind of one thing, basically, which is really nice overall. But basically, this survey that they were doing kind of has some very interesting questions that might allude to the future of the Mario RPGs. So basically, this survey kind of started off, well, with a very generic question about, like, if you know about the Mario RPGs, or if you played them or not. And basically, one of the first questions said, which is your absolute favorite? At first I was a little confused about the responses, because, like, on the surface, it just shows Super Paper Mario, Color Splash, Superstar Saga, Partners in Time, Bowser's Inside Story, and Dream Team. And I thought that was a very weird selection, but then I noticed in the thread on Reddit, they mentioned that this question comes after one where they asked me which games I played, and I selected the ones that are included. So this seemingly includes all of the Mario RPGs. I was just a little confused on that at first, because like most of these are the ones that aren't available on the Switch, aside from Superstar Saga, so I thought that's like basically what they were gauging that on. But no, it's basically like out of all of the Mario RPGs, which ones are your favorite? So, that includes like Thousand Year Door, Super Mario RPG, like, and then even Sticker Star and different things like that. So it includes basically like all of the games except for the Mario plus Rabbids games. So that's good to know. And then moving on, there were like a few more questions that were like really interesting about like the whole selection of like the Mario RPGs and everything, like with these different basically these different like selections here. So basically, there was one that said, below you see a list of features that are common to most games from Mario RPGs. Which of these features do you like? And these include many of the things that people love the Mario RPGs for, myself included. Like, getting stronger by leveling up. I mean, yeah, that's a core RPG feature, but has been absent from the modern Paper Mario games, aside from the Paint Hammer and Color Splash. But there's also like funny dialogues and a humorous atmosphere, exploring new worlds and places, encountering new characters that are unlike the known characters from other Mario games. I wonder what that's alluding to. Then collecting new gear or accessories to become stronger, the graphical style, following and engaging in adventure and story. Another very interesting one. So yeah, I think it includes a lot of these elements that people love from the Mario RPGs. So it's great that Nintendo is like officially acknowledging a lot of this stuff. And it's really cool to see that like associated with Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi. And on top of that, I forgot to mention with the whole selection of games that they showed previously, they're basically straight up acknowledging the Mario and Luigi series. And I'm gonna mention like kind of later on, like even more things that were kind of like brought up about the Mario and Luigi series. It really seems like they're gauging interest on both Mario and Luigi and classic Paper Mario with this. And I guess by extension, a sequel to Super Mario RPG as well. And that is just really, really interesting that they're doing it, and just really great in general. Because I have a feeling that, like, especially with the game selection, there's gonna be a lot of people choosing games like Super Paper Mario, Thousand Year Door, Bowser's Inside Story, Paper Mario 64, games like that. I know Super Paper Mario is a bit controversial, but the only reason I mentioned that is because it's one of the best-selling Mario RPGs, and it's also one of the most creative Mario RPGs, and has an amazing story, which I think is a great blueprint for like other Mario RPGs as well. Maybe not gameplay-wise, even though I didn't have too much of a problem with Super Paper Mario's gameplay, but if Nintendo sees that there's a demand for more stories in characters, like the ones from Super Paper Mario, and by extension, Thousand Year Door and 64, that could be a really good sign. And then on top of that, like Bowser's Inside Story is, aside from Mario plus Rabbids, is the best-selling Mario RPG. Maybe not for long, because the Mario RPG remake might top it, but it's still a very popular game. I could see a lot of people kind of selecting it as their favorite Mario RPG. The same goes for Superstar Saga and Dream Team. Those also sold pretty well, and I could definitely see them being like close to the top as like some of the like best Mario RPGs among a lot of people. So that's a pretty good sign, I would say. Some of the weird games on here, like Color Splash, I mean, no offense to people who like it. I definitely respect that a lot of people like Color Splash, but didn't really sell well, so I don't think that's really gonna gauge that much interest for Nintendo for people selecting it. But yeah. So moving on, there's a couple more questions about the characters, which is very interesting. So there was one that asked, do you prefer new characters or familiar characters? And then the options are basically preferring new characters, equally liking the new characters and familiar characters, and then preferring the familiar characters. I think that's good that they have a response here that's kind of like in the middle for liking both new and familiar characters, because I have a feeling that's probably what most people are going to select, because, I mean, they mentioned Geno and Mallow in the question, so those are very popular characters, especially since the remake released. So I think that's probably going to be leaning towards, like, I like both new and familiar characters equally, which I think would be a pretty good sign if Nintendo saw that as, like, there needs to be a balance between the new characters and the familiar characters, not just strictly limit it to existing characters, also have those new characters in there, but also kind of flesh out those existing characters. And then there's also another one, and I'll just read the question here. When thinking of the behavior or appearance of the familiar characters, which of these statements would you agree the most to? And the most intriguing one here basically says, I prefer even side characters like toads to appear unique and behave in unexpected ways. I wonder what that's alluding to. Yeah, it's kind of funny, like how, like, just like on the nose these questions are to like the newer Paper Mario games. Like, that is just kind of like uncanny how close these questions are to, like, do you prefer it being like the classic Paper Mario games, or do you prefer it being like the modern Paper Mario games? That's kind of what I'm getting from this. But I think, like, there's definitely, when thinking about how this poll will be sent to, like, a ton of random people, I think there could be, like, a lot of nuance on this. Like, I could see, like, a lot of people, like, liking the characters to be kind of portrayed in different ways, like, unique and unexpected. I think that's probably gonna get a decent amount of responses there, but, yeah, and especially if the Paper Mario fans get a hold of this survey, that would be pretty interesting. But yeah, so the final one that was shown as a part of this survey is another very intriguing question here. It's basically dealing with the different battle mechanics and things. So it basically asks, like, which aspects do you like the most? And it includes things like bros attacks, like turn-based combat, real-time combat, and they specify, like, Super Paper Mario, which I think is, like, definitely helpful. Then they also say things like stingers, which is pretty funny. Imagine the people who choose that. The puzzle at the beginning of the battle, like Origami King, companions fighting alongside Mario, like the partners, or party members in general. And then also action commands were referenced as well. A gauge, like the special moves, or the meter from Super Mario RPG. So that's very interesting that they also have this as well. So, I think there's definitely, like, a good chance that Nintendo is really kind of gauging the interest of Mario RPGs right now. Like, they are being very strategic right now, and I feel like there's definitely a very good chance that things could go in a really good direction for the Mario RPGs, especially if Super Mario RPG and, well, if that continues to sell well, which it already is selling well, but also if Thousand Year Door sells well, too. But very, very interesting that Nintendo sends out this survey here. Like, it's kind of interesting that they are kind of valuing the Mario RPGs as a whole a little more now. I think that's definitely pretty interesting. I'm definitely going to do a discussion about why they might be valuing the Mario RPGs a little more now, but this survey is fascinating. Like, I think it's, like, kind of amazing that they're actually, like, acknowledging the Mario and Luigi series here. Like, I think there's definitely a good chance that it could come back now, especially since they've been specifying it so much in this survey. Like, they say, like, the bros attacks, and different things like that. They put all of the games, including the remakes, on, like, which Mario RPG is your favorite. And I feel like that will be helpful if they're gauging interest from a lot of people. But yeah, I really hope the Mario and Luigi series comes back sometime soon. And yeah, so now that I've kind of discussed the survey here, I also wanted to show something really interesting that I did. So this survey was only available to a select few people, but I actually made a mock-up of what this survey, like, would look like if, like, just like how the responses might look to it, because I sent it out to, like, a bunch of people on Twitter. I mean, yeah, it's probably going to be a little biased due to how many, like, Mario RPG fans like follow me or subscribe to me. But yeah. But I just wanted to say thank you for subscribing. If you're a Mario RPG fan, I'm glad you enjoy my content. But even though it might be a little biased, I still think there is a good indication of like some of the responses we could be seeing here, because some of the more popular games and popular aspects of the Mario RPGs might be an indication of how this survey might do, but I kind of wanted to discuss this here. So it has almost 550 responses, quite a lot of responses, probably not as many as this survey will get, but it's probably at least a chunk of that. But basically, for the first question here, out of which one is your favorite, I only included the select games that were shown in that screenshot, but I think that might that might kind of be inaccurate now, due to the fact that they did mention that all the Mario RPGs are on there now. But in the hypothetical scenario, like if this was the selection, I guess this would kind of be shown. But like 2 of the best-selling Mario RPGs were a part of this, so I guess that it's somewhat of an indication. But yeah, Bowser's Inside Story, like, by far got the most responses at like 186 at 34%. And then the second one in second place was Super Paper Mario, which definitely makes a lot of sense as well, since that's a pretty popular game. That was 25% of the votes did that. But yeah, so moving on to the next one. So I'm going to go through the top 5 common elements that people chose. So the number one was encountering new characters that are unlike the known characters from the Mario games. So that one seems to be pretty popular. And that had 403 responses. 73% of the poll here said that. So that might be an indication, I'm hoping, of the official survey. And then the second most selected response was following an adventure and an engaging story. So a lot of people seem to value the story quite a lot, since 365 people selected that one, 66% of the people who responded. Then the third one and the fourth one were both like really close. One was 62.3% and one was 62.2%. And that is exploring new worlds and places, which makes a lot of sense. Funny dialogue and humorous atmosphere, which definitely makes a lot of sense considering like Paper Mario and Mario and Luigi are kind of known for having a lot of funny moments. It'd be like Family Guy funny moments, Paper Mario, Color Splash funny moments, but yeah, moving on. So the fifth most voted one was defeating enemies in a turn-based combat system by choosing your next move wisely. I'm a little surprised that this one wasn't higher, because like to most of the Mario RPGs, aside from Super Paper Mario, have a turn-based combat system, but I guess people value the more specific elements a little more, like Mario games having more unique characters or more unique stories. So it makes quite a lot of sense. Like, I mean, it's kind of a given that these games will have a turn-based combat system. So I guess it kind of makes sense that why that's a little lower at like 48%. But yeah, so moving on to the next response. The next one is the Paper Mario games, Mario and Luigi games, have a variety of characters, or Super Mario RPG as well, like Gino and Mallow. Do you prefer the familiar ones or the new character? And 74.8% said, I like both new and familiar characters equally, and that's kind of what I expected. And 23% said, I prefer completely new characters, which I guess that kind of makes sense, that there would be a little chunk of that as well. And then out of all of these, only 11 responses said that they, out of like nearly 550, said that they prefer the familiar characters. And that's interesting. Like, even though this survey was kind of biased, I think that's pretty, like, there's definitely gonna be some like non-biased responses in that as well, since there's like so many responses here. But the fact that the like people preferring the familiar characters is just like so small, I think that might be an indication of how the official poll might go. I'm hoping, because I really like the original characters and everything, and it kind of makes sense that most people would be neutral and still really like the original characters, despite also enjoying the familiar characters. So yeah, I think that's pretty good. And the next one was the behavior or appearance of the familiar characters, and also by far the most voted response here at 69.8% said, I prefer even side characters like Toads to appear unique or behave in unexpected ways, which is also pretty interesting as well. Like, only 6% like basically said that I prefer characters to behave like they do in other Mario games, which is pretty interesting. And they also, like, 21% said like they expect like the central characters to appear and behave in unexpected ways, which I guess is kind of like how Bowser is in Paper Mario, as well as like Peach to a degree. So I think that's pretty interesting. Just overall, how most people kind of prefer like the unique Toads and different things like that, and also kind of like unique personalities for a lot of existing species and characters as well. So I think that's really cool that a lot of people voted for that, and I hope that's kind of an indication for the actual one. But yeah, so the final question here was about the battle systems and mechanics, like with which ones people like the most. And the top 5 ones here were companions fighting alongside Mario as the most voted one at 485 with 88%. And then the second most selected one was Bros attacks, which definitely shows that people really want the Mario and Luigi series to come back. And it also is kind of like aligns with like the special move from Thousand Year Door, or also the trio attacks in Super Mario RPG. So those seem to be fairly popular in terms of like Mario RPGs. So that's pretty cool. And I feel like it's definitely a much more popular mechanic than things like stickers. Since, yeah, the consumable attacks only had like 2% of people select that. So, that might carry over onto the actual survey as well. But yeah, also turn-based combat system, that was the third most selected one. Definitely makes a lot of sense. 80% of people selected that one. So, that definitely makes sense. And the real-time combat was 14%. Pretty low. And then there was also, like for the fourth most voted one was increasing your power of attacks or defense by pressing buttons at the right time. Basically action commands. So also it makes a lot of sense. That's really like one core element that has been kind of consistent across all the Mario RPGs, and honestly kind of one of the defining elements of the Mario RPGs. So that makes sense that like most people would select that one. And then the fifth most selected one at 52% was having time to play the next move. So that, I think that's kind of like the opposite of like, because of the one kind of representing Origami King with having a time limit to select your moves. So I think that's pretty interesting. Like, since that's kind of more in line with, I guess, like the older Mario RPGs or just RPGs in general. So it's really nice to see that like most people are voting for many of the aspects that are really kind of core aspects of the Mario RPGs. I'm glad that like generally people can agree that like some of these core aspects are essential to the Mario RPGs, and most people kind of like enjoy those aspects. So I hope that carries over into like Nintendo's official poll and everything, but we'll just have to see. I think it's just fun that I did like a little like mock-up poll here. But yeah, anyways, this is very interesting that Nintendo is kind of gauging interest the Mario RPGs, and I think there's definitely a good future for them as well. But anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.